name's Nate, and this is Heavy Pedal Garage. Well, today we're going to work on this hood, but the first thing I had to do was get the car spun around, so it's kind of a bummer. We went from the pretty side, which has been busted down to 220 grit and is pretty smooth and shiny, to this, side here that really hasn't had as much work done to it. And when I did this hood, it was really rough. You can go back into some of the past videos and see where I did all the fiberglass work, had to rebuild the wingtips on the corners. Just the whole thing had spider cracks and whatnot in it that we had to take care of. So in a nutshell, I got it as close as I thought I needed to, and then I put primer on it, and I knew it wasn't going to turn out as nice as some of the other work that I had done, just because it was such a big hood and it was so rough that I got it to a point where I felt like, okay, let's just put some primer on it, and when we bust it down, we'll be able to really see where the extra work is going to be needed. So I'm kind of thinking maybe it might have saved me some time in the long run. I guess I'll probably never really know, but one thing's for sure, I'm ready to crack this thing down with some 220 grit, and I know for sure there's going to be some filler. So let's break out our blocks and we'll get started on this thing. So I'm just going to start with 220 here, and I'm going to use the longest block that I have, and I'm going to use that same trick where you just kind of flex the block to the contour of the body panel you're working while you're putting the paper on, and again, that paper will help hold the contour that you want. May end up having to switch to 120 just because of how much work this thing's going to need, but we're going to start with 220 and take it slow. I like to sneak up on this kind of stuff. You could use power tools, air tools, or electric sanders and stuff, but to me it's just a hobby. I'm not in production mode here. That's probably why it's taken me 8 years to get this far. Just take it easy, especially if you're new at this and you haven't really done it a whole lot. Just don't get in a hurry. Start with hand blocks and just break it down and kind of enjoy the process and pay attention. So that's how it's done. Kind of take it slow, and you can see here I got some lows and some highs through here, so we'll just keep using that crisscross pattern, X's and W's and all that good stuff with the block. You definitely want to work with your contours. So how I'm going to work this is use this long block, and I'm going to work down to this body line, keeping the angle with the body line as I go down. And then we'll switch over and do this side and the larger spots, and then after that I will come back in with the smaller blocks and kind of blend it down in on the body lines and all of that. So there's a lot of complex angles on this thing, and we're just going to have to see what works as we go, using different blocks and kind of feeling it out. So we're just going to bust this out, and then I'll show you where we end up. See where I started to break through. A little bit of fiberglass and some filler starting to show through. That's okay. I just stopped when that started coming through, and you can see I have some lows down here in this little bevel. Kind of a low dimple here. This needs work, which I'm not surprised because I really ground down into this to get rid of some of them stress cracks. So little pinholes through here, another little low. So you see where I'm coming from. Nothing that glaze won't take care of. Listen guys, this was completely broken off. For those of you that are new to the channel, go back and check out the hood repair series with fiberglass work that was done on all of this. It's honestly, so far, one of the favorite series of videos that I've done. I just really like how they turned out. I like how the hood turned out, but rebuilt both corners and patched some fins in here and ground out a whole bunch of material off of this fiberglass hood. So go back and check that out to get yourself caught up and see how this hood got to where it is now. But we're going to go ahead and switch blocks. I'm going to work with sort of a small flexible block to kind of try to get that smoothed out. So here we go. Alright, so got down to the bevel of this body line. And now I want to work this side up through to wrap it up onto this big flatter surface. So I'm just going to use this more narrow block. And so far, I tried it up here and it's working okay. I'm just going to kind of run it up and over that. And hopefully that blocks everything out, levels it all up without creating too much dig and too many gouges. So we'll try it, see where it turns out. Trial and error, right guys? So I did switch to 120. That 220 was just taking a real long time to cut through this nice big flat surface. So switch to 120. It's still cutting it down pretty nice. We're just going to keep going with this 120 grit. And you know, again, I'm taking the same approach on this body line here. I'm just rolling it up into that nice and gently, not letting the block break over, because what I want to see is a nice crisp line where it's been sanded, so that I know that's nice and straight. So I'm going to show you how I do this right here. This is where the scoop starts to build up and get some elevation. So there's going to be a tricky contour right here. So what I'm going to do is start on the flat, and then I'm just going to work with symmetry and watch the areas that aren't sanded. Okay, so what I'm going to try to do is sand up to a certain point, maybe like right in through here, all the way around, so up to that. And that will help keep the symmetry. I'm not going to get wild and get up into here yet. I just want to get this from here down to here blended in. Okay, so right here, I'm going to have to clean that up a little bit to kind of get that to arc. I don't know if you can see, there's a little bit that's unsanded. It's like right here. Okay. So now there's a little bit through here that's unsanded. We'll just get that cleaned up. Okay. So I'm just going to leave that for now. I'm going to get that, but I just want to show you this. So here's my new line right here. So I'm just going to bring that on around. Okay, see that? That's getting pretty clean. It's like a pretty clean arc. And then periodically, I'll go back and make sure I blend it out into the flatter surface of the hood. So at some point, I'm going to switch. Instead of coming up in, you know, you can start working this top right here and get all this flat, so that basically all this is good, and then you're just kind of bringing these two flat surfaces together at the same time. That's how I do it, guys. If you got a better idea on that, let me know. This is certainly some complicated corners here, and if you have any tips or tricks, I'd love to hear them, because this hood has got to be right. There's just so much real estate on these Firebird hoods. They are huge, big, huge flat panels, so if I don't get this just right, it is really going to show up. All right, guys, before we move on, I just want to talk a little bit about something a guy on another channel was referring to. Scott Rods. You got to go check this guy out. He's up in Canada. He's working on a super cool old car, and he was talking a little bit about, it's winter, and it's just kind of hard sometimes to get the motivation to come out in the garage and get something done. So, he talks about some of the tips and things that he likes to do to kind of pass the time and keep the project moving forward. So go check out Scott Rods, check out his channel. Seems like a super cool guy, but he posted that video and I commented like, this is perfect or something like that, because I've really been feeling it. It's probably been a week and a half, 2 weeks since I've really come out here into the garage to do anything with this car. One of the things that I like to do is just come out here with no real plan, and I bring a cup of coffee and I just sip on that coffee and just kind of look at the car. I might get into something, I might not. It might just be 10 minutes for a cup of coffee. Or maybe I see something that strikes my interest and I get motivated and I get started. So, sometimes it's just getting out here and getting started that's the hardest part. You know how it is. Once you get going, you're moving. It's not too bad. But another thing I like to do is clean my garage. If I'm having problems with feeling motivated, sometimes a dirty garage is what's doing it. I don't have the neatest, most surgical garage, but if I'm kind of needing a motivational boost, sometimes I will come out here and just clean, organize, look at the project, get the stuff organized and ready for the next step. Maybe it's just getting my sandpaper out and laying out blocks, what blocks I need. And maybe that turns into actually jumping in onto the car and working. Sometimes it's just getting the stuff cleaned up and ready to go for the next time I'm out here. I got a little garage, but big intentions, so I got to keep this thing going. If we're not moving, our projects won't be either. So I'd like to know what you guys are into and what you do to get motivated. So go ahead and comment that down below, and I'd just like to see that. So I'm gonna go ahead and keep going on this thing. I'm just gonna grind it out, and I'll bring you back whenever we get to a point where there's something else to show you. So stay tuned. So I got it all cleaned off. I got all my spots marked where I know I'm gonna need to work, and I'm gonna try out some of this USC icing. So here's where we start to do the dance. I'm just going to wait for filler to dry on that side, and I'm going to go ahead and get started on this side. Same issues over here that I had over there, pinholes, some minor imperfections. So I'm going to start with 120 on this side because I know I'm going to have to cut it down a little quicker than what 220 would do. So we'll block this out and then switch back over there to finish that off. Yeah, it kind of warmed up today, so while I was cleaning out the garage, just backed the car out, got it cleaned up. So there we are, down to 220. Had a few more little nibs that I had to fill in, but other than that, I think it's going to prime out pretty good. We shall see. Only time will tell, but man, you got to love the 2 scoops. Formula knows. So before we lay some primer down on this thing, if you like what you're seeing, don't forget to subscribe. Go check out Scott Rods. He's got some really cool stuff going on his channel. You're not going to want to miss that either. So let's get back to work, get the primer laid down, and see where we end up. Alright, well, it's primer day. Pretty nasty day outside. Went from halfway decent to just garbage overnight. I'm looking forward to getting this done. Got my cup of coffee here, my liquid motivation, and just going to clean this thing off, get some plastic to cover the pieces in the motor and put some paper out, and we'll get it going. Really, really, really looking forward to seeing how this turns out. Turned out pretty good. I do still have some little dimples here. I got some trash in it, but it's not terrible. The one thing that I definitely wanted to point out is that in a couple places where I used that thin block, I don't know if you can see it, but right along here, you see that line? That's from where I used that little thin block, and when I was rubbing it up and down here, I never carried it back, so I kind of got a little bit of a groove. How I'm going to fix that next time is I'm going to do this first instead of this, and when I do it I'm going to be sure to bring it back, and that way this gets done, and then any groove that does come out of that, even though I'm going to drag it back, I'll still be able to get rid of that through here. So I have it right there, and then I think there's just a little minor bit on this body line too. The biggest thing that kind of irritates me is I missed these dimples, these little pinholes in the fiberglass. So not a big deal. Look, it's got to get blocked again. It might even need primed again. So I'm pretty happy with it. Hey, the sun's out. Let's get this thing outside and you guys can really see what it looks like. It's pretty good out here in the snow. Well, there you go. Catch me next time.